Hello, cultured and knowledgeable audience. Welcome to another episode of this show, where, unlike the morning show, here we actually take a look at the edge of our national reality. No need to ask the master of Palanque. Make yourselves comfortable and join me on this journey through the pure surrealism of the fourth transformation. Now it seems Mr. Orange is serious and could surprise them at any moment. They're already getting ready, according to them, to stand up and defend their presichacha if necessary. But is that really the case? Or is it all just barking? Let's get to it. It turns out that the Morafachos are obsessed with this chocolate war fantasy, as if they didn't have enough already, with inflation, insecurity, and that little detail that the country is falling apart in our hands. Now, the elite of the 4T has decided to go into guerrilla mode. 60s style, yes, just like you heard. If you'll have enough for the basic food basket. In the halls of Morena, they're already dusting off Che Guevara's manuals and dreaming of ambushes in the jungle. For example, we have the regime's official poet, Commander Epigmenio Guevel Cibarra, this man who seems to live in an eternal low-budget movie about the Salvadoran Revolution. He came out saying that here we have a lot of mountains, a lot of jungle, a lot of president, and a lot of people. Damn. As for poetry, what Epigmenio forgets is that the mountains are being divided up by criminal groups, and the jungle has been destroyed to build a train that's as useless as his head for nothing. But the background is darker than a filter in his documentaries. They say the pamphleteering tone is no accident. It's an echo of what the supreme leader murmurs in solitude. That talk of retirement means, if they come for me, the people will rise up. How romantic, how naive. Depending on how you look at it, the problem is that people are usually more concerned with finding ways to survive than protecting the rest of the eternal slacker in his golden years. In Palanque, and speaking of Palanque, it turns out that the best-kept secret is that Lopez Obrador's ranch already looks like a war zone. But a real one? Sources from the north, yes, those imperialist neighbors they mention so much, claim that an anti-drone system and state-of-the-art radars have been installed. How? Why would someone so beloved by the people want an electronic shield worthy of a NATO summit? Is he afraid that a drone will deliver him a court summons? Or is it that Maduro's beard has already started to get wet? Because honestly, watching Trump's agents drag Nicolas from his refuge in Caracas, it wasn't exactly the video that old Guango wanted to see that weekend to start the year. But notice how wicked these sons of 1,000 pigs are. The masterstroke, however, comes from faith. Secretary of Defense, you must know national military service is now mandatory. No more black balls unless it's from not showering. Well, officially they say it's to give discipline to Generation Z. At the National Palace, they're convinced that young people are rebels without a cause, who could be recruited if it's necessary to face Yankee imperialism. But the truth is, they want to display muscle in the streets, which they don't understand. It's one thing to bring people to the Zocalo with a sandwich and a soda to applaud Claudia Sheinbaum, and a very different thing to ask them to stand in front of a Marines tank. The people of Ibarra have a limit, and that limit is called common sense. On the other hand, we have the repugnant Gerardo Fernandez Noroña. There he is entrenched on the front line of battle, but from 10 what it used to be. Twitter is dirty, but not that stupid shouting, insulting on social media, showing digital bravery. Of course it scares the algorithms. But, as a United States official rightly said, we don't see any Morena leader offering their children to defend the homeland. The homeland is defended with other people's children, from the comfort of a very important person lounge at the airport and an iPhone Pro Max. And in the midst of all this chaos, Presidenta Claudia Sheinbaum, oh, poor Claudia, has she really not understood that her worst enemies aren't in the opposition or in the media? The ones she accuses of being unpatriotic? Her real enemies are sitting in her own cabinet and giving orders from Palanque. Those radicals who have nothing to lose are pushing her into a dead end. If she keeps repeating the rhetoric of delirious nervousness, she'll end up being the captain of a ship that her own crew is drilling holes in. But as if the beginner's resistance manual wasn't enough, the outlook has gotten worse. It's more the color of ant pride, or rather, more the color of a blockade than our maroon revolutionaries would like. Here they pretend to be guerrilla soldiers shouting Mexicans and don't pull, you'll uncover us. In the Caribbean, reality is exposing the last holdout of authoritarian romanticism. See what's happening with their favorite island. Our officials go on solidarity missions using public funds. Of course, now that Uncle Sam has his hands on Venezuelan oil. After Maduro's departure, Cuba's subsidy has ended. Trump and his Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, who by the way has an elephant's memory for the grievances of the Latin American left, have already shut off the valve without Caracas's crude oil. Cuba is nothing more than a raft adrift. The suffocation is total. Trump already said it. With that style of his that shakes the structures of Havana, Cuba is going to fall. He doesn't say it as a military threat, but more like someone watching a dry tree, waiting for the next wind. Marco Rubio, with his twisted cunning, knows they don't need to fire a single missile. It's enough to let economic gravity do its job. Without oil, without dollars, and without the Venezuelan godfather, the island is on a countdown, and this is where things get tough for Sheinbaum. If you think Mexico is immune to that pressure, you're living in the same fantasy world as Pygmenio. Invade us to force us to give in. Remember the tariffs? Well, that was just a warning shot. Maybe the real suffocation for this government wouldn't come from the Marines landing in Veracruz at first, but from a stroke of a pen in Washington that could paralyze the whole country. The time will come, and trust me, it's closer than Claudia wants. When the pressure becomes so unbearable that the pats on the back from Palenque won't be enough to stop everything, to calm things down, or to satisfy their appetite. Trump doesn't want collaboration, he wants results, and in his language, results mean heads. Sheinbaum will face the darkest labyrinth of her career. Does she obey the orders coming from the Oval Office so that Mexico doesn't end up as a giant desert-like version of today's Cuba? Or does she keep protecting the untouchables? What will she do when asked to give up the files on narco-politicians who thrived during the Fourth Transformation? Will she dare to turn in López Obrador's protégé, or even allow the arm of American justice to reach the master of Palenque if the investigations keep moving forward? Economic hardship and political pressure are highly effective torture methods. You either betray your own people or fall with them. Remember, the TMEC review is approaching. And Claudia, no matter how much she uses the same tone of voice as her predecessor, has a survival instinct that the radical narco-politicians don't. Florecido, the shadow of the Fourth Transformation. What will she do? Will the narco-politicians who have cast a shadow over the Fourth Transformation be asked to turn themselves in? What will she do if they ask her to hand over the names of the narco-politicians? What will she do when they ask her for the files on the narco-politicians who have flourished under the Fourth Transformation? What will she do when they ask her for files on narco-politicians who have thrived in the shadow of the Fourth Transformation? What will she do when handing over the narco-politicians who have flourished is no longer an option? Will Claudia betray her people before the ship sinks? Or will she go down with them, like Titanic musicians playing Chilanga Banda? Be mischievous, but take good care of yourselves.
Remember that you can make your donations via PayPal. You can find the information in the comment section. Thanks to you, this channel stays active. It's important to subscribe, like, and press the bell to get notifications for new content.
Thank you.